The air was heavy and thick around the old gas station, heavy with the stale scent of gasoline and heat that had been trapped for days under the brutal assault of a summer sun. Vanessa Moe stood beside pump number 4, mopping the sweat from her brow as her green cotton top clung to her back. A dull headache pulsed behind her eyes. Another sleepless night filled with worry. Everything in her life felt like it was closing in. Rent was late. Her second job at the diner barely kept the electricity on. And her mother's medication, the one thing she couldn't cut corners on, devoured what little she earned. She reached into her pocket for her last crumpled $20 bill, hoping it would be enough to buy half a tank to get her through the week. That was when the chilling tone cut through the silent air. "Look, man!" A deep, gravelly growl snapped her attention to the next pump. A towering bike man stood before them, arms thick with muscle and tats travelling up his neck like a wildfire. His leather vest proudly displayed Hell's Angels. The lettering was a little faded from overwear. Down his back, a loose ponytail dropped, his weathered features etched with lines of frustration. Across from him, the attendant, a young man, still sporting that clean corporate look of a new employee, named Ryan, crossed his arms. "No pay, no pump," he said stiffly. "Company rules, sorry." The biker's jaw flexed. His hands curled into fists, and for a second, Vanessa thought he might smash the pump to pieces. But when she met his eyes, something flickered there she didn't expect. Something that had nothing to do with anger at all. Shame. A man cornered, embarrassed, trying to hold on to what little pride he had left. Vanessa could have looked away. Most people would have. After all, he was a Hell's Angel, the kind of man others avoided. But her father had raised her differently. "Always look at the person, not the patch on their jacket," he used to say. Before she could change her mind, Vanessa stepped forward. "I can cover it," she whispered. Both men turned to her then. The biker blinked in surprise, piercing blue eyes filled with disbelief, while Ryan frowned, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "Ma'am," he began, but Vanessa pressed the worn bill into his hand. "Put 20 in his tank," she insisted. The biker raised a calloused hand, shaking his head in confusion. "Lady, you don't even know me." Vanessa gave a small smile of fatigue, one of those that carried both exhaustion and empathy. "You look like you need a break," she said simply. For a moment, even the searing heat appeared to stop, as if the world itself was holding its breath and listening. "Es solo gases," she said quietly. Ryan was taken aback, torn between company policy and the quiet steel in her eyes. Finally, he sighed, took the bill, and set the pump to flow. The biker exhaled slowly, the kind of breath a man takes when he's been holding too much inside for too long. When the tank clicked full, he turned toward her. Up close, he seemed even larger, every inch of him rough and worn by life. "Name's Mark," he said gruffly. "Vanessa," she replied, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. Mark searched her expression for the trick, the catch, and found nothing. Just a woman who had her own battles, still choosing to help someone else fight theirs. "You're a rare one, Vanessa," he said in a low, gravelly tone, but sincere. Then, with one deep nod, he swung his leg over the Harley, cranked it to life in a deafening roar, and disappeared out onto the open road. Vanessa stood there a moment longer, her hands trembling. That $20 bill was supposed to keep her car running for the week, but her heart, somehow, felt lighter than it had in months. Perhaps that was worth more. The next day dawned like any other. Vanessa took in her shift at the Greasy Spoon, wiping down tables until her arms ached, and coming home to change her mother's bandages in an attempt to hold together her fragile world one thread at a time. By evening, she was stirring a small pot of rice and beans, all she could afford in the kitchen when the sound came. A low, heavy rumble, deep, growing louder. Her heart quickened. She froze, wooden spoon still in hand, as the vibration rattled the window glass. She strode to the window and gasped. Motorcycles, dozens of them. Big Harleys lined up along the block, their engines chugging, headlights glowing in the dusk. Vests were caught in the fading sunlight, red and white Hell's Angels patches glowing like fire. Men and women sat on their bikes, wordless, all eyes fixed on her tiny house now shabby. Vanessa's hand went slack. The spoon fell to the floor. "Mama," she whispered. "Stay inside." Then came the knock, deep, booming, shaking the very doorframe. Vanessa's heart pounded as she opened it. And there he stood, Mark, the same biker from the gas station, yet somehow bigger, broader, more commanding than before. "Vanessa," he said, voice cool but firm. "Can we come in?" She hesitated, nodded, and stepped aside. Mark turned, raising a hand. One by one, the bikers dismounted, but instead of weapons or trouble, they carried boxes, toolkits, and bags of groceries. They filled her small yard off the porch, where Vanessa stood frozen. Mark nodded toward the cracked paint on her walls, the sagged gutter, the loose front step. "You helped me when no one else would," he said softly. "Our family don't forget that. Before she could say a word, the crew sprang into action. One man hammered new boards onto her porch. Another patched the leaky pipe near the kitchen wall, and two more scraped and repainted the faded siding. A woman with long braids and a smaller patch on her vest reached into the passenger seat and handed Vanessa a box of groceries. Eggs, milk, fresh vegetable, even chicken, things she hadn't seen in her fridge for weeks. Vanessa's throat tightened. I can't pay you for this, she stammered. Mark shook his head softly, eyes soft. You already did, he said. You saw me as a person. That's enough. Meanwhile, a biker named Jack fixed her busted garden hose and started watering the parched flower beds. Another prospect hauled the trash out to the curb. One even waved to Vanessa's mom through the window, inquiring politely if she needed anything. Overwhelmed, Vanessa sank onto the porch step, her eyes brimming with tears. All this from a $20 tank of gas. Mark hunched beside her, one huge hand laid on his knee. For that moment, his rough demeanor melted. No one does what you did, he whispered. People see the leather, the patch. They think we're monsters. But you didn't. Vanessa's voice shook. My daddy always told me you help someone if you can. Mark nodded, eyes glinting. Then your daddy raised you right. They worked until the streetlights flickered on. By the time they finished, Vanessa's little home looked like new, repaired, clean, alive. Mark walked over, holding a small brown envelope. The club raised some money, he said. Take it, for your mum's medicine. Vanessa shook her head, letting the tears fall freely. But he took her hand and pressed it firmly into her palm. Take it, he repeated, his voice soft but uncompromising. Engines roared to life again, and the angels lined up along the street, while neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering in disbelief. Mark gave one last nod, his blue eyes soft beneath the porch light. If you ever need us, he said softly, you know who to call. She clutched the envelope to her chest as the motorcycles thundered into the night, standing on the porch and weeping. And in that moment, she finally understood what her father had meant all those years ago. You help because it's right, not because it's safe, because in giving to a stranger, sometimes it gives back to you in ways you could never imagine. If this story touched your heart, take a deep breath, because what you just witnessed isn't about a $20 bill, and it's not about a tank of gas. It's about humanity, about how one small act of kindness can ripple out and change everything. The thing is, it wasn't safe for Vanessa to help that biker. She helped because it was right. And in return, the world was reminding her that goodness always gets back to you when you need it least. So, if you believe that kindness still has any powers in this world, hit that like button, share this story with someone in need of hope today, and subscribe to Real Kindness Stories, where stories like this remind us that compassion isn't weakness, it's strength, because sometimes a small act of courage becomes the loudest echo of love.